Episode 11A, Musclebob Buffpants. SpongeBob orders fake arms with inflatable muscles to impress Sandy. Fun fact, Donald the Shark is voiced by Doug Lawrence, the voice actor of Plankton. My favorite part of this episode is the ankle toss competition. Larry wins the ankle toss competition, but when SpongeBob tries to throw it, he loses, so he gets 0 R's. I don't have much to say about this episode. It was a great episode. It's getting a 10 out of 10. And the episode has really great comedy as well. Episode 11B, Squidward the Unfriendly Ghost. Squidward pretends to be a ghost after SpongeBob and Patrick think he's dead. Fun fact, this is one of the rare times that a Nicktoon uses the word dead. Yeah, Nicktoons, they don't use the word dead very often, but in this one, they do. Anyway, my favorite part is the watermelon gag. Patrick gives Squidward a watermelon and he says, while saying, "One watermelon fresh from the newer fields." Also, there's a famous artwork in this episode, Troupe de Poseidon. I don't know who created that one. This episode is kind of funny, but it's a little weird. Yeah, like that ceremony, the Flying Dutchman, he never haunted the 7 seas. Because of this, he haunts the 7 seas because he's never put to rest. This episode has some good jokes, but there is an part of this episode that I didn't really like. Yeah, it was when Squidward's statue melts and then they try to put it back up. Yeah, I'm gonna give this episode an 8 out of 10. Episode 12A, Chaperone. SpongeBob takes Pearl to prom. Fun fact, Patrick went to prom with his mother, and SpongeBob couldn't get a date at his own junior prom. My favorite part is the Do the Sponge song, of course. That's the musical number. Also, it's not Fred in this episode who says "my leg," it's another fish character, I don't know who says "my leg." This is a kind of mediocre episode. Here's why. First, Pearl wants to get prom over with, and then SpongeBob accidentally ruins everything, and then suddenly, during the Sponge song, they think they love us, but then they get kicked out for no reason, and then they tell them, go wreck someone else's prom. There are some things wrong with this episode. I'm gonna give this episode a 4. Yeah, I wasn't very wild about this one. Well, the plot isn't so great either. Well, there are a few jokes in the episode, like SpongeBob as a basketball and Pearl trying to shoot him into the basket, which was kind of actually funny. Other than that, I don't think this episode is good enough to get a higher rating. Well, that's too bad. Episode 12B, Employee of the Month. SpongeBob and Squidward complete for the Employee of the Month award. Fun fact, there's actually a PC video game with the same name as this episode. My favorite part is the alarm clock gag. I don't have much to say about this episode, but let's start the review. This episode has a clever plot with some clever gags, especially the fighting sequence to win the award and the repeatedly flipping Krabby Patty sequence with 2 spatulas, then 4, then 8, and then destroying the Krabby Patty, Krusty Krab. Also, when SpongeBob is trying to get at the patty that is stuck to the ceiling onto the grill, which is actually also kind of pretty funny. That's all I have to say about this I don't have anything else much to say. It was great. I'm going to give this episode a 9 out of 10. Even that quote there was actually a pretty funny quote. Episode 13A, Scaredy Pants. SpongeBob becomes a ghost for Halloween. Fun fact, this is the first appearance of the Flying Dutchman. My favorite part of the episode is when Patrick is trying to tell the difference between SpongeBob as a ghost and the paper ghost that Patrick made. This episode is about Halloween. Because of this, it's only aired around Halloween. Yeah, and the episode next is a Gary episode. Let's focus on this episode. This episode, I think, tells a good story. Like the Flying Dutchman who haunts the seven seas, and SpongeBob's Flying Dutchman freak out, and then the real Flying Dutchman comes in to the Krusty Krab. It's a good plot, really good comedy, so I'm going to give it a 10. There are a lot of jokes with SpongeBob's brain. SpongeBob saying that his brain is his pink hat, and then, don't worry, it goes back. And there are a lot of jokes about him being the Flying Dutchman, and he scares kids out of nowhere, random kids, but he's pretending to scare them, but he's just SpongeBob Squarepants. That's just nitpicking. Let's move on. Now it's time for episode 13B. I Was a Teenage Gary. SpongeBob actually transforms into a snail after being injected with the snail plasma. Fun fact, this episode is a reference to the movie I Was a Teenage Werewolf, which I haven't seen that. But my favorite part of the episode is the mouse song. That classic mouse song. They go, meow, 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 meow. Also, look in the top corner of the screen. That clock means that this is the first episode to feature a time card. I like how SpongeBob is transformed into a snail, which was actually kind of funny, and then SpongeBob scaring Squidward as a snail, and then Squidward suddenly he's a house, and then he suddenly gets injected with the snail plasma, and then turns into a snail, which is also pretty funny. But the episode doesn't have enough comedy, and it doesn't tell that much of a good plot, so this episode is gonna get, what should I rate this? 5 out of 10. Yeah, this episode is also kind of weird. It's weird to see that SpongeBob and Patrick had left Gary for the weekend to go to that jellyfishing convention, and then leaves Squidward, who was trying to relax, and then he forgets all about him, and then Gary nearly dies of thirst. But he just needed water was all. Also, the part where the doctor tries to stab Gary with the needle, but then he accidentally injects SpongeBob, which causes him to transform into a snail, which is a funny part, but the episode doesn't tell too many jokes that I liked. Episode 14A, SB-129. Squidward accidentally freezes himself for 2,000 years and experiences complications when using a time machine. Fun fact, this episode's title card is actually read out loud, which doesn't happen often. This is the first time, it will very likely be the only time. And in fact, the title card for the episode is floating. My favorite part, Squidward's sit-ups. And this is also the first time that I mention that the time card is read out loud, and the only time in Season 1. This episode also made it to the Ultimate Sponge Bash. It's number 5. Now, what should I give this episode in terms of points? Do I like it? Do I hate it? I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. This episode actually starts off badly. It's because SpongeBob and Patrick keep annoying Squidward. They're like, ready to go? No, I'm not ready to go jellyfishing, and I never will be. And they keep doing it over and over again. But the episode has a good setup to start, with SpongeBob asking Squidward is getting ready to play the clarinet, and then SpongeBob wants to go jellyfishing. The episode is very cool in a way. Squidward enters in the past. We see ancestors of SpongeBob and Patrick, and that's how jellyfishing was invented, but then he ends up nowhere in a realm of nothingness, and he's all alone. Also, we see future ancestors of SpongeBob. SpongeBob's X, Y, and Z when he's in the future. There are actually 486 letters of the alphabet in the future, but there's actually 26. You know what's ironic? the episode takes place in 2017 when the episode aired in 1999. That episode takes place 17 episodes after this one aired. That's very odd, and it is revealed in this episode the Krusty Krab is closed on Sundays. So, 2,000 years later, the episode takes place on March 6, 4017. But at the end, when he claims he misses everything, and he wants to go home because he misses everything. It's a very funny episode, in my opinion. And also, the ending is incredibly stupid. Episode 14B, Karate Choppers. SpongeBob and Sandy get obsessed with karate. Fun fact, this is the first time that SpongeBob gets fired. My favorite part is Sandy trying to give SpongeBob the hot sauce. SpongeBob doesn't like hot sauce, but Sandy does. I only have very little to say about this episode. First, at the beginning, we see SpongeBob's feet trying to do karate, and then he thinks it's Sandy, but it's just a couch, and then SpongeBob gets fired, which is very cool. They end up doing karate in the park, but Mr. Krabs doesn't want them doing it. It's a bit hilarious, but it's cheesy at some points, so I'm going to give this episode 7 out of 10. The plot is kind of interesting, and I also like some of the jokes they tell, like squeezing the rocks, and Patrick's ending line, Squidward's ending line, "I hate all of you," was pretty funny, and karate, money, make it with your spatula, and the hot sauce is actually being a novelty toy, and the old karate techniques, which is also being kind of funny. Episode 15A, Sleepy Time. SpongeBob visits the dream of others. Fun fact, this was the first episode of the 21st century. My favorite part is SpongeBob as the clarinet. La 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 la. There are a lot of funny stuff in this episode. Just like Patrick is riding that kiddie ride, and he loses his quarter, and it's like, shoot, that was my last quarter. And at the end, he asks someone for a quarter. It's a very cool episode. And then, Plankton crushes the Krusty Krab and licks the sign. SpongeBob thinking it's a nightmare when it's actually a dream. And the Paris shoes joke, pretty funny. But unfortunately, there aren't a lot of funny stuff through the episode, so it's going to get an 8 out of 10. This episode is also very funny in Squidward's dream when they toss the Squidward into the wagon of fruit, and then he is launched out, which I also liked. And that's all. 15B, Suds. SpongeBob catches the Suds after leaving the fridge open. Fun fact, this is the first appearance of Hands, the live-action hand. My favorite part, SpongeBob's treatment. This is a really great episode. It's gonna get a 10. When Patrick is giving SpongeBob the treatment, he doesn't hurt him at all. He's really helping him. Like when he's plugging holes into his head, and the barefoot jackrabbit on the high greasy griddle with Sandy, and SpongeBob bouncing around into the Krusty Krab was kind of funny. Then Patrick, he pretends to have the Suds because SpongeBob got a lollipop after his treatment. And then SpongeBob watched all those really good things, like the man's foot and the sinks and the dishes and cars. But Patrick, he cleans cactuses and toilets, which cactuses hurt. But there's also a funny moment when Patrick, he imitates, he beep. He's not here. Please leave a message after the beep. Beep. And then Patrick's house having feet is also kind of funny. So, it really builds up to one really great episode. Episode 16A, Valentine's Day. SpongeBob and Sandy try to give Patrick a Valentine's Day gift. Fun fact, this episode and its partner episode, The Paper, both made onto the Ultimate Sponge Bash. Not only that, Valentine's Day was number 8, and The Paper was number 7, which is kind of ironic. And in fact, the episode right before this was number 10. So, look at that chart. Suds 15B is number 10, 16A, this episode is number 8, and the next episode, The Paper, is number 7. So, if you don't include Patty Hype, the episodes are going in consecutive order. I don't believe this. Anyways, my favorite part is Patrick out of control. Patrick doesn't get a Valentine. Because of this, he starts going out of control and then destroying the carnival. Oh, he keeps going on Mount Climb Up and Fall Off. It's a very funny plot, and it's a really great episode. So, I'm really gonna give this episode a 10. There's nothing not to like about this episode. It's a lot of Patrick running around because he wants his Valentine, and then Sandy, who is on a balloon, needs to destroy Scallops because they're trying to eat him, the balloon, and then Patrick's Valentine is the balloon, and then at the end, he bites a hole in the balloon, and then chocolate starts to come out, which is kind of pretty funny, if you ask. And also, chocolate bubbles. It's also Sandy's a very funny episode with a good plot, and which is also kind of funny. Let's move on to episode 16B, The Paper. SpongeBob plays with bubblegum wrapper, and then Squidward wants it. Fun fact, this episode is rarely aired due to its sister episode being on Valentine's Day. This episode is only shown during the month of February, and in fact, well, as I mentioned in the previous episode, both episodes were on the Ultimate SpongeBob Sponge Bash, which is a lot of irony. This episode and the Valentine's Day episode both made it. Anyways, my favorite part is SpongeBob's impressions with The Paper. Yeah, I wasn't very wild about this one, so I'm gonna give this episode a 6. I also like SpongeBob's imitations with The Paper, and I also like his origami, but when Squidward has it, that's kind of annoying. Well, it's not a Squidward torture episode in any way, but it's still not that good to be better. And SpongeBob tells a joke with The Paper about what happened to the paper that flew in the ocean. And guys, it was washed away. That was also kind of funny. And SpongeBob playing Mary Had a Little Lamb was also kind of funny. It's still a good episode, but there are some flaws to it. And now let's move on. Episode 17A, Arrgh! SpongeBob and Patrick and Mr. Krabs go on a treasure hunt. Fun fact, this is the first episode paired to not feature Squidward. My favorite part about this episode is the compass reading Wheezed. Very funny, and I also like the joke that Mr. Krabs is getting all sweaty again. And also, I liked the treasure map game. The treasure map game was, the game stuck to a board. Then SpongeBob and Patrick keep looking at the map, but then Mr. Krabs catches them looking at it, and then they get kicked off the treasure hunt. Mr. Krabs, they call Mr. Krabs sweaty like 5 times in this episode. I like this episode. There was a ton of good stuff in this episode. So, I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. This episode also tells a really good story about a treasure hunt, and the Flying Dutchman appears in this episode, and it's his last appearance in Season 1, unfortunately. And that's all I have to say about this episode. Episode 17B, Rock Bottom. SpongeBob gets stuck in Rock Bottom. Fun fact, this is the first appearance of the amusement park Glove World. My favorite part of the episode is SpongeBob and the vending machine. SpongeBob, while was waiting for the bus, he puts in the buttons to get Kelp Nougat Crunch, but then a fish takes it, and then he gets annoyed. I also like the different gags of how he gets on the bus, and all the raspberries episodes. This episode is getting an 8 out of 10. There are a couple parts of this episode that I don't like. I don't like the fact that the bus leaves him in the dark till the morning, and I don't like the scene where Squidward spits on the glove-flavored candy dispenser. And what's ironic, why would there be 329 people in line? The monsters are getting annoyed because he's cutting the line. Hey you, stop cutting the line. And let's move on to the next episode. Yeehaw! Episode 18A, Texas. Sandy feels homesick and decides to return to Texas. Fun fact, the last line in Sandy's song is sung by country singer Junior Brown. Highlight. My favorite part is, ironically, isn't not the music number, it's Texas insults. Hey, what's so bad about dumb old Texas, kids? Nothing. I also like the part where they build Texas in the sand, and then Sandy says that he doesn't want to eat jellyfish. You actually catch jellyfish. Well, the song was a bit sad, but the rest of the episode was really great. So, it's getting a 10 for its comedy, its good jokes, and its storytelling. Yeah, Flats the Flounder makes his second appearance in this episode, his first appearance being Sandy's rocket. I also like how SpongeBob and Patrick are being chased by Sandy, and they're running to the Krusty Krab, which is also pretty funny. And everything in this here, there's nothing to dislike. It's really great. Episode 18B, Walking Small. Plankton takes SpongeBob into being assertive so he can build the Mega Bucket. Fun fact, SpongeBob's stand-up routine is similar to Jerry Seinfeld. My favorite part, stepping on the beach. This is kind of a weird episode in my opinion. Plankton the Krabby Patty secret formula isn't even mentioned in this episode. Plankton is trying to make him be assertive. I like some good jokes in this episode. So, I'm gonna give this episode a 9 out of 10. This tells somewhat of a good story, but there are some good jokes as well. Just like with the ice cream joke. SpongeBob's trying to get an ice cream, but people trying to steal him, but Plankton is upset because he got 2 ice cream cones, so SpongeBob decides to eat one of the ice cream cones. Yeah, during the credits, a country version of the SpongeBob theme song is played because it was paired up with the previous episode, 18A, Texas. Episode 19A, Fools in April. Squidward plays a nasty prank on SpongeBob. Fun fact, first episode where Squidward's mom is shown. My favorite part of the entire episode is the fish's ice cube prank. There is a lot of funny pranks in this episode, but there is one that goes on for way too long. That is when Squidward is trying to say that he's sorry. It goes on for way too long than it needs to. It goes on for about 2.5 minutes. It should only go for just a few seconds. He is also. It was very funny when SpongeBob had a lot of sodas and he was going to drink them all, and then, and his tongue pops out, and his tongue wasn't wearing any shoes, which was also kind of funny. This episode is getting 0 out of 10. April Fools. I'm giving this episode a 9. I was just messing up with you. But at the end, everyone gets pranked. That isn't really a good way to end the episode. Episode 19B, Neptune Spatula. SpongeBob is challenged to a cooking competition with King Neptune. Fun fact, the man in the shower is Tom Kenny himself. My favorite part is the fry cook-off. There is one thing... I forgot what I was going to say now. Oh yeah, this episode didn't really stand out that much in my opinion. Yeah, I also Neptune hurts Patrick by zapping him so many times he turns brown, and SpongeBob wants him to fix his friend. With all that, maybe this episode should get a 7 out of 10. There is one thing that annoys me about this episode. It's the fact that Patrick's face is sticking on his pants. That really does annoy me. But the fry cook-off was still very great. It was like a basketball game, a scoreboard-like thing. And also Larry the Lobster tries to pull the golden spatula from the Krabby Patty, but failed. It's kind of weird to see Larry do something like that. Episode 20A, Hooky. SpongeBob plays hooky with Patrick. Fun fact, the lines, "My sandwich tastes like a fried boot," and "My sandwich is a fried boot" has become very popular internet memes. My favorite part is when Patrick and SpongeBob are riding on the hooks. Yeah, who loves this episode? I love it. Speaking of love, I'm going to give this episode a 10 out of 10. There's a lot to like about this episode. SpongeBob nudie pants at the end when Patrick is in the can of tuna, which I found to be actually kind of funny, but stupid. And also I liked the part when SpongeBob is stuck to the hook, which is actually pretty funny, and Patrick referring to the hooks as the carnival. But they're hooks, and Mr. Krabs says that hooks are dangerous. Beware the hooks. And that's it for that review. Let's move on to the last time for the last episode of the season, episode 20B, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 2. SpongeBob wins a conch shell in a contest to summon his heroes. Fun fact, this episode's plot is similar to the Rugrats episode Angelica Breaks a Leg. Haven't seen that. My favorite part is when the fish says Spongebob Squarepants, and they saying that he really works hard on those life-size mannequins in Mermaid Man Barnacle Boy, and then there was a mistake, and then the fish corrects himself and says the real winner is Spongebob Squarepants. Yeah, this is a fun episode. And this is the only Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episode from the pre-movie episodes where the scales are purple instead of blue, and the music isn't the Line Man. It's usually heard in Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episodes, but this one, for some reason, it wasn't. I hated this. I'm gonna give this episode an 8. As a kid, I hated this episode. There was the dirty bubble. I didn't like it when the Merman was trapped in the dirty bubble. That was kind of creepy. But let me tell you, this is still an amazing episode. Yeah, and I also liked the part where the origami, where they get folded into an origami. That was also kind of funny. Yeah, and the end of the episode, the screen goes black. That's a great way to end the season 1 of SpongeBob Squarepants. And that is the end of our season 1 episode review. Now let's do my top 5. At number 5, we have Opposite Day. The jokes in here were amazing. Even the 2 Squidward as SpongeBob and Patrick was really funny. And at number 4, we have Texas. SpongeBob and Patrick making fun of Texas made me laugh a lot, and that whole dumb old Texas thing. Number 3 is Arrgh. I like the compass reading Weast, and it's a really great plot with some very memorable gags. Number 2, Pizza Delivery. Another classic episode. The pizza jingle is amazing, and I liked how Tom was yelling at SpongeBob for his Diet Dr. Kelp drink. And at number 1, Ripped Pants. This was another classic. It had a musical number, which was also one of my favorite parts of the episode. And also, it was funny to see Scooter laugh at his ripped pants. Now it's time for my bottom 5 for season 1. Number 5, we have Sandy's Rocket. The plot was kind of weak, but there were some good jokes that I still liked, like the toothpaste and the peanut butter gag. Number 4, The Paper. This one, I wasn't very wild about that one. They didn't tell enough good jokes either. Number 3, I Was a Teenage Gary. SpongeBob being transformed into a snail was kind of creepy, and when SpongeBob is trying to stab Gary with the needle, but fails, well, I didn't really like that one. At number 2, The Chaperone. Pearl wants to get prom over with. SpongeBob makes a long list, and then SpongeBob ruins everything, and then he gets kicked out for a stupid reason. It's a plot that just doesn't work. And at number 1, Squeaky Boots. The only joke they ever tell in this episode is Mr. Krabs in the window, and everything else is nothing but squeak. That's why Squeaky Boots is number 1 on this list. And there's nothing else that's funny about it. Now for some final notes. Most episode titles had only one word. They were very simple titles, just like Jellyfishing, Plankton, and Bubble Stand, and Sleepy Time, and Suds. And there were no special episodes at all in this season. They were all 11 minutes episodes, except for Help Wanted, which was 8 minutes, and Reef Blower, which was 3 minutes. And this season did not use digital coloring. Well, the animation was kind of rough for the first quarter of episodes, but then it got better. Plankton was tiny throughout this season. Yeah, but in Plankton, but he was smaller than in the rest of the season 1 episodes. And there were a lot of funny gags. Just like in Squidward the Unfriendly Ghost, Patrick giving Squidward the watermelon, and in SB-129, Squidward's reaction to the future. And there were a lot of very basic plots in this season. The first episode was also kind of basic, with SpongeBob getting the job, and in Tea at the Tree Dome having tea at the Tree Dome, and finally, the last note, the "my leg" gag happened 9 times in this season. This is Nushmut 200, signing off.